Hello, ball watchers. Welcome back to Ball Watching, a St. Louis City SC podcast. You're joined here today by Jake. Could be getting a little bit of Justin here later in the show, depending. I know he had quite an evening with some family for a reunion. So shout out to Justin's fam. And we're gonna be discussing a recap today. No dual episode today. No full preview for the next match against Vancouver. We now have a week between matches, finishing up a long stretch here of match after match after match this week. So it's been a long one, but I'm excited to just kind of dig into this one specifically and be able to kind of peel back the curtain on what I saw last night and what Justin saw last night and what you all saw last night. So if it's going to be me, especially with only me, definitely hop in here with some comments and questions, and I would love to get to those. So that will be a big part of the show today. So make sure you're dropping those in the comments. Thank you all to those who have already joined the live stream, and you're already dropping those in there. We will get there. All right, guys. So let's get into it. So a 1-1 draw. Another draw. Who is happy about that? Not me at this point. And we have, with that, gotten into double digits on the season on the draw, getting our 19th point in basically as many games now at 19. So it's still, we're not out of the dark just because we scored the goal. And I think we have things to be encouraged by yesterday. And, I think a lot of folks probably feel pretty hard done by the referee performance as well. And I don't want to talk about too much of that stuff yet because we're going to get to that here in the show. But all in all, better than a loss. If you're looking at the title with me, at least ATL, at least we scored. So, it was good to get that off of our chest. Finally, you could see the legitimate relief in Klaus, and I'll cover that when we get to the goal. But could be worse is kind of my summary here. Of that specific match. Atlanta, I think, is better than what the stats are saying. They were without all three of their DPs. They just sold one of them, obviously. So this wasn't the best version of even this current season's Atlanta, without Thiago Almada in the side as well. So, it's not like I was impressed to see us go up against a side that is, humming and to get that even draw. But, grateful to at least not have another loss and to find the back of the net, which it's been forever on. So I'm going to get into the game, and I'm going to start with the starting 11. So our Hoffman Bros starting 11 was Roman Burki, Jaden Reed. A lot of folks had not heard of him, myself included, heading into this day. I know that he was on City 2 and logging tons of 90s for them in the back line, but basically comes up. It sounds like they identified him on Thursday as the person they were going to bring in with all the fixture congestion. But, we had Watts and Marcanic both available last night. Watts obviously played. But to have him come up and come in as a starter shows a lot of trust in me. And I did a little bit of digging in the background here. I realized, coming from the Red Bull system. So Carnell obviously also coming from the Red Bull system. He actually played 1 minute with the Red Bull last year in the MLS. Otherwise, he logged all of his minutes with their New York Red Bull 2 team. And this year he had logged all of his minutes with our City 2 teams. We brought him over this season. And he's been pretty solid, it sounds like, from all accounts, enough so that we bring him up and throw him straight into the starting spot. So if you're him, that's a big show of trust from Carnell just to throw him in there when you have two guys that have played that exact same position, literally the game and the game before that, right before you. And show of trust, I think, paid off. We saw Wenzel come into the starting 11 as well as a center back. We've seen him before. I think he's a known commodity to us at this point with room for improvement as well. I was happy with his performance. Tim Parker returns after his yellow card suspension, sitting out a game. Leuven Durkin returned to, I think, their favorite positions in kind of the 6 and 8 or kind of the 2 8s or 2 6s, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Leuven have a lot more freedom to roam forward. Our front three, just behind Klaus, was made up of Thor, Kajima, and Indy. And this specifically for me, I think I put all three of those in my starting 11, my predicted starting 11. There's just not many options at this point, especially for those wide spots, because you're missing Alm, obviously still. Celio out for a long time. Ostrak out for the rest of the season. So this is the position where your hands are kind of tied. at this point. Offensively, we have little to no depth at all, and you felt that last night when we tried to make subs. I mean, obviously, John Klein came on, having just signed his contract with the team. So shout out to John Klein as well. What a huge, awesome accomplishment for him. I mean, a guy that was what, a third round draft pick and played at SLU, has so many St. Louis connections and just SLU soccer deep connections. And to have a guy like that, regardless of what you think about him and his repertoire, or if you think he'll make a big impact on the first team, the fact that he signed that first team contract, that's really cool to have St. Louis really represented on that roster. And I'm happy about it. Obviously, I'm a SLU grad as well. So selfishly, I've seen him play even through college. So it's really, really fun for me to watch him get to this field as well. And then you have Klaus up top. So I think all things considered, probably your best available starting 11 with the bold decision of including Jaden Reed on the left. So that's the starting 11 I wanted to kind of parse into very briefly before getting into the game. But the game, started off buzzing, man. I mean, we're in the first 10 minutes or so, and you see Vincel step up to win the ball. Kojima gets the ball off of that, lays it off for Leuven, who plays Thor in behind. Thor made a lot of these types of runs. This was the first of them, but it was a great opportunity. He was one-on-one with Guzan, and I think the ball just kind of got caught a little bit underneath him, and he struggled to get it out, create some space for a good shot to get it either in tight around him near post or dink it over him or kind of curl it even with the outside of his boot far post. And what happens is he just hits it straight into Guzan. So a grade A big chance. And that was our only big chance when you quantify them of the night. And we hit it right into Guzan. So it's an unfortunate way to start, but to see Thor getting into that dangerous position, I think was a positive for me. So that was a good way to start. Even a minute after that, there was a corner kick and it popped out Kojima, who brought the ball down. Instead of just hitting it one time, which you feel like a lot of people do, and even he's done before, he fizzed it into Klaus, who was able to take it on the just one touch and then just laser one absolutely off the crossbar. So it was a really good piece of play from both Kojima to kind of have the wherewithal to bring it down and then to play it in tight to Klaus, who was able to take that one kind of tidy touch to set himself up on the volley and then hit it. It just rung the crossbar though. So there's two chances back to back. You feel this team humming, offensively at least, and you know that the threat's going to be there tonight. So great start for City. If you're Carnell, you have to be really excited about that, but you have to be, I think, a little more critical or disappointed in the inability to turn at least one of those chances around. Imagine, let's just hop in our little time machine right now and go back to 2023. Both of those are goals. Both of those are goals for us. And for probably all intensive purposes, barring a huge bottle job from the team, game's over. Atlanta says, we just got here and we're down 2-0 and within 10 minutes. So that's the kind of stuff you're looking for here is this I always say lethal or clinical finishing, but I think the reason why you say that, and it's really important, those two things on their own, they're the same, but it's also you need that to kill games. If you can kill on goals, you kill teams and they don't want to play against you anymore, or they give up, heads go down, confidence is shot. That's what you need. We need to be putting teams in that position to where they're disgruntled or they're frustrated against us because we finish our chances and it's not happening for us right now. Berkey was called into action pretty early last night as well in the 26th minute with a strong, but I'd say expected save on a longer range effort. In the 39th minute, felt like we had our breakthrough. I had a guy that was walking out after the game, not a friend, just a random spectator I was walking out with and an earshot of, and he was saying, they might have been able to take that goal from us, but they can't take the memory of me popping my shirt off. And I loved it. I have absolutely had to include that somewhere here because it just cracked up to myself as I was walking out. But long story short, Thor slotted home a big cutback from Indy, but Klaus was turning around on his run in front of Guzan and kind of maybe screened him a little bit. That was a lot of the initial worry of mine when I was looking at this. Obviously, in the stadium, again, I know that they announced the calls of the stadium now, but it's still, and I get it. They don't really want to show the replays because they could be inflammatory or get the fans riled up and saying stuff, and things could get a little bit, out of control. But it's such a poor fan experience to be there and just kinda sit there, like, twiddling your thumbs, like, I don't know what they're looking at. I have no idea what's going on. I didn't see it. They're not showing us replays. I did see it, but I didn't see all the different things that they will be reviewing in VAR. So, it's kind of a frustrating fan experience, if you ask me. But long story short, this was a goal that Thor scored. I mean, what a guy to score it to. You could see how happy he was, and literally during the review, he actually did at one point take the ball that Guzan had put on the line, which he thought he was screened, so he thought it would be a foul, and he was going to have a free kick from there. Thor took it and ran it back to the center circle and put it there as if, no, this is my goal. You're not taking it from me, which I love. But anyway, they reviewed it for a couple different things from what I was able to pick up on. And this is just me in the stadium kind of trying to backtrack on it. I know they checked for offsides. I know they checked for screening Klaus on Guzan. If you're in that goalie's path, if you redirect his eyes or blind him from that opportunity and you're in an offsides position, you could be ruled offsides there. And that would be obviously an infraction. And, they would call that back. They do that. Sometimes it's really subjective, in my opinion, still. But what they ended up calling back is during these reviews is kind of similar to hockey with offsides, where if there's an infraction or any sort of, offsides in hockey, but in this case, a foul in soccer that leads up to that goal being scored, and VAR is doing their review, and they look a lot more at those reviews when they have a couple different checks to make. They run the camera backwards and they check the lead up and the build up, and they identified a foul that was that occurred in kind of midfield area for Leuven before starting the attack and really going down north and being able to score that goal, and it gets called back. I mean, I like to say gut punch in the podcast. I've got to find a different synonym because this is the thesaurus might need to get dusted off here in the Koenig household, because there's just not many words to describe the type of fortune that we feel at this point. And the referee in which he delivers it, God, I just wanted to punch him. I mean, the guy does this long sitting on the field waiting for the VAR room to come back to him with the decision. They tell him to go look at the monitor. So we've now been here for, 5+ minutes, and he's at the monitor for a couple of minutes as well. And you're like, what is possibly this controversial? And he finally steps away from the monitor. You're like, okay, fine, we'll get the call. There's been a couple like false cheers, like, oh, we're good. And the players, and the first thing he says is, following VAR review, there was no offsides. And the stadium goes ballistic, like absolutely ballistic. And in the same breath as he's finishing that piece of the sentence, he raises his little finger to the crowd, like, oh, hold on. And he says, however, and then proceeds to drop the bomb on us, which is there was a foul in the lead up play, which, I mean, dude, get that out first. Like, I don't care that there wasn't, that we weren't found guilty of the offsides. Tell me the bad news. Don't get the stadium up and happy. We haven't scored a goal in 6 or 7 years at this point. Like, don't do that. That is a problem to me when referees insert themselves as this little showman. I hate it. And then maybe it's a protocol around, like, announce the first thing that would have been reviewed, and the second, and the third. Don't care. I think that is ridiculous. This guy deserves a Tony for how he delivered that speech in such a dramatic fashion. My God. So on that note, we have put out the George Gansner bat signal. He will be assessing his availability for us to get in front of him this week and talk a little bit of sin bin and get some of these things reviewed, man, because I think we need a little bit of oversight into what transpired last night. We did move on past that. That was on the 39th minute that all happened. In we obviously had 9 minutes of stoppage time in the both the first and second half. But the first half, in the 45+2, Thor got slipped in again, and he took a little bit of a bigger first touch that took the chance away from him. The defender was able to catch up, kind of clean him out, make a big tackle. And that was one of at least two instances where I saw him played in behind, or that last touch just let him down a little bit. That doesn't, for me, write off his entire match, but it's frustrating because he finds himself in dangerous positions. But that small thing just catches up to him, and he's not able to get the most out of a really good chance. It goes back to the commentary I think I've made about just composure in the box and being able to not freak out when that ball gets to you. You know where you're supposed to go. You've done this before. You've practiced it. It's well drilled into your brain, and you don't feel this pressure just washing over you. There's a good amount of pressure regardless, but just a I've been here before confidence and ability. I feel like generally as a team that is lacking, and I think he showed it a little bit last night. Second half opens up. And we're back on the score sheet, but this time for real. Indy intercepted a poor switch from Atlanta, and he tried to slide in Klaus, but left it kind of short, so that got cut out. But Durkin ends up on the ball with a great tackle to keep it in their third. He dropped it off to Jay Reed, who chipped in a floated, back post ball to Klaus. It's high enough to the point where Klaus won't be able to kind of snap his head and put that on frame with any sort of pace. So what he does is the perfect thing to do. And the thing that, yes, it will be in the score sheet because he gets an assist on it. And so does Jay Reed, by the way. MLS does do secondary assists. We've talked about that on here. So Jay Reed gets the debut and the debut assist. And then Klaus gets that ball in the air. It's super high up, like I mentioned, does enough just to knot it down into a dangerous spot. Indy sees what's happening, collapses on that spot, and volleys, just puts his laces through it, leans over the ball, and just volleys it into the near post. It's in many ways a very textbook goal with individuals doing their own job very well. I think Jay Reed keeping it within himself, lofting a back post ball into a dangerous area to our gorilla of a striker in Klaus, who's going to go up and win that or absolutely challenge for it. You see him then notice that he can't get it on goal, knot it down just into a dangerous position, not trying to force anything here, but just see if someone else has that IQ to step up. Guess who has that IQ? Indy. He sees exactly what's unfolding and puts his laces through it and keeps it down. He's not going for the absolute firecracker in the upper left corner. He's going for something on goal and fast. And that's going to be hard for Guzan to react to. And it works. We find ourselves on the board. City Park absolutely erupts. And in many ways, we all can kind of take a collective sigh of relief that this, period of goal drought is finally coming to a close. And we have maybe some sort of, semblance of there could be more in this game. There wasn't, but there could have been. Anyway, getting into the rest of the second half, there was an absolute missile that Atlanta took in the almost 60th minute, that I thought with my angle, I had a really good angle, that Berkey might have touched. I don't think he did. It just clinked off the upper 90. Would have been a tough way to concede shortly after just going up. And then in the 67th minute, I kind of have a low to a highlight where Winsel overcommits to his Atlanta attacker, skates right by him, and Berkey makes a point blank save, parry right over the bar. He's one on one with the goalie, and the guy just goes for power to go right by him. And he kind of plays big, plays low for anything that's kind of coming to either side of him because you're going to have zero time to react. You've got to have the positioning right. And it comes down to where your hands and arms are as well, because there will be very minimal time that you have to react and make a movement with those. So your positioning is going to be huge here. And his positioning is perfect. And he parries it over the bar, but not too long after Atlanta's goal comes. And it's an unfortunate one. There's a cross following a corner kick that goes in. We are able to clear it out. It pops out to Thor. Clear it out, not past the 18, but towards the top of the 18 where Thor is. Thor doesn't know too much about their Atlanta attacker being kind of right in the vicinity of him and flicks a boot up at it just to kind of keep it going on its way to clear it out. But the Atlanta attacker also realizes what's happening and kind of gets that ball. By the way, the replays here are atrocious. Unless someone has it for me, I don't have a true opinion on this, but from what it looks like, Thor and the attacker both kind of flick the ball at the same time with a reaching boot. But the attacker sells it, goes down in all theatrics. We play on. I mean, it eventually cleared, and then the referee pointed to the spot, gave himself some time to think about it, and then pointed for a PK. Super frustrating. There's a lot of people that like to crap on Thor a lot too, so I'm sure he didn't help his case last night, but it's a tough way to concede a chance. It didn't take too long in the stadium for them to actually take the PK, so I wonder how quick that review was and what angles they had, because from the angles that I saw, they were awful, and I couldn't really make a clear designation, and if the call is a PK, remember, you're gonna have to have clear and obvious, evidence that it wasn't to overturn it. So maybe that's what they couldn't get to. I don't know. But my initial thought was that not a foul. Very, very soft call. But again, we'll talk to George about that on Sinbin when we can get him here. In the 78th minute, Thor and Durkin combined to put him in, and the pass is redirected to Leuven, who hit kind of a shot cross or a schross to force Guzan into a save and parry that away. In the 81st, Wenzel had a game-saving kind of push-along clearance where there was a ball being centered into the box, and normally I think a defender slides with their body facing the ball as it's coming in to, clear it away. He actually did the opposite, which was huge. And he kind of swung around it almost like in a banana shape and was able to kick it along its way where there was a far post Atlanta attacker just waiting for it. So skipped it right over him. Huge play from Wenzel in the dying 10 minutes for City. 83rd minute. Subs. I get so sick of talking about this. And I will also acknowledge that the bench is razor thin at this point. But putting Blum on for Thor in the 83rd minute when we're tied 1-1 at home, we haven't won in forever, feels like a concession to me. And maybe that's exactly what he was doing. Don't know. And I have to ask him that directly. But what are we thinking? I mean, I'd rather Thor stay on. Even if we don't have a sub, we are like at this point, we already had Klein in. We didn't have McSorley. What I know there's not many options off the bench, but seriously, this just kind of feels small-minded a little bit to me to put on Blum, a central defensive midfielder, just a ball winner, supposedly, in that game in the dying minutes to just see through a draw, I guess. Because going forward in the dying minutes last night, we were so tired. Leuven was so tired. Obviously, Kojima had come out, Klaus had come out. We had Caden Glover on, and he had some energy. But again, our attack was just gone by that point, legs wise. So we didn't really carry much threat, anyways. But again, we question man management. That's a perfect example as to why. Again, I know he doesn't have many options at this point. If that was a bench that had some of our new guys on it, or Ostrak, or Alm, or Cilio, I don't know who that would be, but I would be a lot more critical. The only kind of pass I'm giving him is that there really was not many options to put on, but I still kind of feel like I'd rather Thor run himself into the ground before putting Blum on that field. So my personal take, welcome to it. And then the 86th minute, we had a yellow card. Indy absolutely chirping the ref after a great kind of 50-50 shoulder challenge in the corner. I mean, that guy, that the defender that had that challenge with him, obviously the guy sold it, went down like a heap of bricks. I mean, get in the weight room, dude. I mean, Indy is 160 pounds soaking wet. He is almost, into a 90 plus minute shift. I think this guy was a sub, and he goes down, sells it hard, and the ref takes the bait, and they get a foul in the corner versus Indy skipping away with the ball after he was able to stay on his feet or just get up and collect himself shortly after and keep the ball going. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. It just, these small things to me kind of added up last night. I don't like the yellow cards for dissent, but again, I get the frustration if I'm Indy. I mean, you did the hard yards, and this guy just goes down hard and sells it, and the referee bites. The last thing I'll say before I get into my summary of the game is 90 plus 9 minutes. Atlanta didn't go away. They definitely had some late flurry of chances. And guess who's going to save us on Atlanta counterattack with us giving the ball away cheaply once again in the final 15 or so minutes? Leuven on his horse with everything he's got to finish out this game and make sure we come away with at least a point, because God knows it could have been worse. And he's able to track back, make a big tackle, and we get out of there with the 1-1 draw. So that's the recap I have for you. I want to just kind of hit a couple big things before I get into the stats and the rest of the content for today. And that's around looking at this performance compared to Wednesday. Obviously different personnel, but I also think very different mentality, despite it being a better team. I think Atlanta's better personally. I'm not saying than us, but I think Colorado to me, I know they're winning games, but I was not overly impressed by Colorado. I think their game plan was good. Their tactics were good. Way better performance than Wednesday. Way better performance both on the field and I think in the minds of the players as I'm perceiving it as a fan watching. I just felt like there was more drive, more hunger, a little more tenacity in how we played as a team. I thought I mean, from a tactics perspective, Atlanta had a lot of possession like we expected coming in. A lot of it very null, not much going on with it. And they were pretty clean in a lot of possession. But when we were able to force giveaways and takeaways, which we were, every one of those that at least I noticed, we tripped over ourselves. We got that ball, we collected it most of the time in dangerous positions. And that next pass is key to turning this from a takeaway into a chance in quick fashion. And it's that little transition moment that really keeps us behind to me. It's just that, you know what I mean? You pick it up. Let's just say it's Kojima picks a pass off, and the first thing he does is pick his head up and look for that next pass, leaves it short, and then they have the ball right back, and then we're not going to see it again for a couple minutes. It's those types of things that just frustrate the living daylights out of me. And I know it's not easy. I know these guys are working their tails off on the press for sure, but you've got to at least maintain possession on that. If we don't counter, okay, but we have to at least, get to relish in some of the hard work that we get and hang on to the ball and take our foot on the ball for a couple seconds and have some possession. Frustrating. But again, with more critical, more quality players, more players that can finish, those chances should come good. And again, Atlanta's a good possession side, and I think we did make them uncomfortable last night. I also think we did well in identifying some weaknesses, especially in the first half, with playing the ball in behind, just slipping balls in behind, not even high balls, but high balls or low balls to Thor, where I think the center back and their right back, there was always a little bit of space between that we were able to find Thor. There was probably 2 or 3 times we were able to find that exact pass, that little slip ball in behind. He gets one-on-one or one-on-one with maybe a defender, on his shoulder as well. Finishing aside, I thought finishing aside, and the thing I mentioned specifically about, the PK, still don't think too much about that because I still don't know and I don't have the best angles. And my not my hot take, my initial take is that this wasn't a foul. But the finishing and I think just those small critical moments, those just a little bit too loose of touches leading up to a chance. This was Thor's best performance, in my opinion. And that's probably not a take that a lot of you all will have, but he found danger last night. We used his legs to get in behind. When we don't have vertical threat, which we do with Alm, we have a little bit with Celio. Obviously, he's a lot more dribbling threat. You've got to find someone that has it. It's not Indy. He's not quick enough, but Thor is. If you could find some way to have Thor play a role similar to what Alm is in the team and just kind of stretching the field, or just being able to use his legs getting behind, I'm in for it, man. I even saw him play in the middle of the three in the second half, and I didn't hate that either. I thought he looked pretty composed in receiving the ball in the central spaces and getting it out wide and keeping it working. So I want to see more. We're going to, regardless, this next 5 or so game stretch before the reinforcements come in because we have to. But is this what we're going to get with him? Are we going to see him grow into the player that we were supposed to see, obviously, before this, but just hasn't been able to come to because of, not as many minutes available. Maybe his confidence has been lacking as well. So I, I'm happy about his performance. I'm optimistic, I would say, about Thor's performance. I thought Jay Reed obviously was very promising. I did obviously see a lot of commentary then on social media after, like, whoa, this guy, he should be our starter. I want to pump the brakes a little bit on Reed. One, because you can't just all of a sudden heap all these expectations on him. It's one game. And I also do think for as well as he played, he did what he was supposed to do last night. He kept it very simple, especially in the first half. A lot of back passes, a lot of 5-10 yard passes, keeping it easy, playing direct. And that's what you're supposed to do, especially in your debut. I'm sure that's what Carnell told him to do. minimizing those mistakes. In the second half, I think you saw him kind of grow into his own and take more chances and drive the ball more upfield. And I thought that was great. So I loved the evolution of even just that one match last night. And I do want to see more, but I do want to pump the brakes or at least tap the brakes a little bit on everyone thinking that now he is the guy at left back. The final thing I want to say is Berkey last night. A lot of people love to talk about Berkey's never he hasn't made any PK saves in 25 matches or whatever. I don't care about the stat. It doesn't matter to me. I've never cared. I think I'm on record saying it's stupid to think about how many PK saves a goalie's made because it's such a small part of the game. Made the save last night and then was scored on the rebound. In some ways, that's a little bit of, not karma, but it just kind of feels like, guys, he did what you asked him to do, and we still got scored on. I mean, who cares about the PK stat? I don't think he's going home any happier because he just saved the PK now. Yeah, he got, like, that stat line at least somewhat corrected or looks better now, but again, if the ball still goes in the back of the net, it's somewhat like, it's ironic. I'll just leave it at that. It's ironic that everyone likes to have that take around his PK lack of saves, and all of a sudden he makes one and we still concede. Reinforcements are arriving, everyone. Carnell did mention in the post-game press conference, that Jake Girdwood Reich, our center back coming from Australia, and Toykart are arriving for training this week. Obviously not eligible, still not eligible. They will not play at least until July 18th when they will be formally eligible to play for the team. I think July 20th will be the next game if they are ready to go by that time, but they are joining as if, this is their off season right now. So it'll be weird to see them get spun up. I'm sure they're just not getting thrown into first team training. They'll probably kind of get a little bit of rehabilitation, kind of build their legs up a little bit and then get them in. But, it's good because we have a month between now and that game. Can you do that and get them ready? So I'm loving hearing that. I want to see this Hartel deal get pushed over the line so he can be hopefully soon to follow. Statistically, looking at this game, shots wise, we had a 16 to their 13, but if you look at on target, we had 4 to their 8. They made the most of those couple chances they had, and Berkey was equal to them as well. They had more passes than us, but really possession wise, it ended up relatively close compared to what I would have thought, knowing how Atlanta likes to possess. We had more touches in their half. So again, we were carrying a decent amount of threat against this Atlanta team, but again, their defense isn't that much to be talked about. Take their PK out of it, XG was about the same for both teams, just hovering right around 1. So a 1-1 draw actually ends up feeling pretty fair. We generated a lot of open play XG at 0.78 to their 0.43. Set plays, I do want to talk about because we had a decent amount of them last night, but none of them where I feel like that generated a good chance for us. And I feel like I've been feeling that way for a while now compared to the beginning of this season where they were a big strong suit of ours. So I would like to see us get back to that and really try to use set pieces to distinguish us from other teams. Player ratings wise, Berkey obviously was the highest rated player, followed closely by Leuven and Klaus for their performances. I think our back line was great. Quiet night from Totland because I think they do a lot at this point, teams do, to nullify him being able to get forward. But Reed obviously had a solid showing. So I think Parker and Wenzel were a great center back pairing. They are bullies out there. They played super strong, very sturdy, very compact last night. I liked what I saw from both of them, and I want to see more of them moving forward. I could see Wenzel being signed, especially in the absence of Jake Gerwood, right? Being eligible and Yarrow looking as shaky as he is. I could see him potentially being the next one to follow John Klein in this instance for us. Thorson, I already talked about his performance. Leuven, I think did well. He put in a shift last night, both defensively and on the attacking side. Chris Durkin quieter, but defensively pretty solid. And I do like to see his passing improve game to game. I think he did well last night to kind of spray some balls out wide, but he also still coughs up the ball in some dangerous positions sometimes after doing the hard yards and winning the ball in the first place. Indy put on a show last night. I thought he worked his tail off and obviously got rewarded with the goals. So a huge performance from Indy. And then Klaus probably divides opinion at this point. For him, again, puts in a shift, puts in 71 minutes before coming off to Glover. And I wasn't blown away, but I also wasn't disappointed. I think he left a couple of poor passes, but I think the way he's able to hold the ball up for us and be an outlet when we need to escape pressure, it's unmatched. I mean, he gets bullied up top and he hands out some bullying as well. And there were a couple moments last night. I'm like, just thank God we have him. Because if it was anyone, if it was Nico like it was last season or anyone else, they're losing that ball and they're coming right back down. So I think he did a lot of off the stat sheet things last night for me. But again, you're Klaus. You rung the crossbar. You got to start scoring goals, man. And it can't just wait until those reinforcements arrive. But I will give him time. Kojima, another quieter night from him following a huge performance, just in terms of minutes in his legs and just effort exerted on Wednesday. I'm surprised he even started. He definitely looked off the pace a little bit. It was not his best night, but one that you can stomach when it's a guy like that we just drafted, this past draft. So I'm okay. All growing pains there. My heart and soul of the team last night, it's got to be Berkey, man. 7 saves. He faced an expected goals on target of 3.06. That includes the PK, which I think was point 0.7. And he got the PK monkey off his back finally. And in some ways, the fans kind of got what they deserve for giving him crap about the whole PKs thing in the first place. I do want to also give a credit to him around. I saw a post game quote from him around talking to Jay Reed before the game. And I love it, man. I just love it. He's obviously our captain, but just the leadership. And he said before the game, I talked to him. I told him that the reason why you're here is because you're good enough. Put yourself in Jay Reed's mind right now. If you're hearing that on your debut from Roman Berge, who you probably, if you played FIFA, which what soccer player never played FIFA growing up? You probably played with Dortmund at some point, and you probably had Berge as your goalkeeper. You know that he played at Dortmund, had an illustrious career. You know that he's played in the Champions League many a night, and he's the reigning MLS goalkeeper of the year. To hear that person tell you, Jay Reed, that you're good enough, having played 1 minute in the MLS in your career so far, and you're going to start in his defense tonight, gotta just it puts goosebumps in me, man. I mean, that's got to be such good incentive or so confidence inducing if you're Jay. And I think you played like it. So the leadership is more than just what you see on the field. It's stuff like that I love that he called out last night that just gets me jazzed up. So Berkey is my heart and soul of the team. Obviously, Soul Juice, a partner for us here at Ball Watching. You can get 20% online orders for Soul Juice at souljuice.com using code Ball Watching at checkout, or you can get them at a lot of places here in St. Louis now. At Schnucks, Deerbergs, On the Runs, you name it, they're probably there. And if you're not sure, go online and check it out. You can do a store locator and see where they are closest to you. All right. I also spent, a little bit of time at the pitch yesterday. Before the game, as not great as we have been performance-wise, the pitch is not letting down. This team is in mid-season form. The staff are absolutely nailing it despite having hundreds of people there, all thirsty, all hungry, and all waiting to see City don the city pink and get out there on the pitch. And the pitch is the place to go, man. It's so much fun. All the city red in there. Everyone's jazzed up. We're all watching Copa America before that match. I'm sitting in a little lounger. I'm messing with the iPad, changing the channel, making sure I get what I want to watch on. It's phenomenal. If you have not been there, you need to get there. Go to the pitch. So predictions and Grahammers for last night. Justin and I both predicted a 2-2 draw heading into this one. We got the draw right, not the goal count, obviously. And then bets wise, I had second half being the highest scoring half. That's a cash. Both those goals came in the second half, and Justin bet the over 3.5, which unfortunately did not hit. So I think, Justin, if you're listening, with that, I just pulled ahead on the units won this year, despite some big W's that you have had. So the last thing I want to say before I get to the final wrap up of the show is obviously I mentioned our Hoffman Bros starting 11. Guys, why is maintenance important? Why do I care to talk about this consistently on the show? Obviously, we love Hoffman Brothers; they're a partner of ours. But personally, now as a new homeowner, not new anymore, but I still feel very new. Is especially during this time of year, you've got to catch these repairs that need to be made before they break down. You've got to increase efficiency in your home if you can. Save some money on those bills if you can. Reduce those utility costs. I mean, maybe your AC is running at 120%, capacity when really you want to get that knocked down to a better threshold, maybe around 95 or closer to 100. And that's not good for your systems. It puts a lot of strain on. It ends up hitting your wallet at some point, one way or another. So be proactive in these things. And the last thing I'm going to say is safety. Obviously, you've got to be safe when it comes to these systems. If you don't know everything about them, they're complex, and make sure you have people that understand them in your corner. And that's Hoffman Bros. So Hoffman Bros can be reached at 314-664-3011 or online at hoffmanbros.com. All right. Heading into the wrap up here, before I get into some questions, I want to say, where are we going from here? We are going to Vancouver. We are going to put some serious freaking miles in the legs for these boys as they head out to Vancouver to meet the team that is sitting in ninth currently, which is the final, wild card playoff spot, up 6 points on us and have a game in hand. We talk about almost every game now as a must-win game, but this is like a must-win game because this team is sitting between us and where we want to be. Actually, they're in that final spot right now, and you've got to come away with points. And you really have to come away with 3 points here. I mean, they're coming off the back of 2 away losses to Portland last night and New England the prior match, but their last home game they defeated Colorado 2-1. You've got to get your first away win, and to get it in Vancouver would be spectacular. So we'll get to the preview, obviously, but that's the match we're coming up on, and we have a week to prepare for. So I'm going to get to some comments quick before we close out here. Brett hopped in here this morning, said it's a struggle watching this team right now. It's going to be a long month or so before we get our transfers in. I agree, Brett. It's a struggle definitely watching this team. It's not the most watchable form of this team that I've seen ever. And I think when those new transfers come in, it will be a breath of fresh air, and hoping that we can probably, it's not gone by then. I'm hoping that we still have a fighting chance, and we will, right? But not, where we have to win out at that point. So I just think right now it's damage control, collect some wins, get back on the right track, and let those guys accelerate us to the finish line. We had Amy in here, not happy about another draw, but grateful we scored, and it was nearly a win. I agree, Amy. It also could have been nearly a loss with seeing some of the end kind of flurry of chances yesterday. It sounds like a broken record, but definitely could have been worse. I agree, Amy. Absolutely. You can see how I feel with how I've talked about it and then how I've even labeled the episode. We have a lot of questions in here about VAR and the referee performance. I promise you we will get to those in the send bin this week. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We had a good comment from Michael as well. I talked about Reed, but Mike had this to say, Reed played fantastic besides feeding in the final third. I agree, Michael, and I think that's one thing that will come with time for him. I hope what I said resonated with you, and that I think he was given direct instruction last night to play within himself and to keep it simple, easy passes, crisp passes. You're not going to go out there and just be a superstar tonight. Come in and be solid. And he was solid last night. And I think as the game went on, he progressed into it as well. We've got some people in here still not loving the Thor. That's okay. That's okay. Ref, you suck. Becoming way too common of a chant in here from JT. I agree. It's almost like it's just not enough at this point, right? I mean, I get everyone wants to channel their frustration into something, but I don't think the ref cares hearing that. And it's not going to change anything for us, but it's like, how do we vent live at the game? And there's just really no way to do it sometimes. But we try to vent, or at least kind of thoughtfully vent on the send bin episodes. So I'm hoping we can do that. And I saw a comment in here too from Jay Laswell 1882 on Instagram saying VR needs to move to a coach's challenge and only review what is in question. I love it. That will never happen, but hot damn, am I down for that? That would be so much fun, so much drama. Can you imagine? So that's all the questions that we have here. And again, we'll probably be back with you this week, even pre the preview, obviously for the preview, maybe a double. We'll see. The reason I keep saying that is we're going to get George on here. Obviously, last night there was a lot to unpack with some of the refereeing decisions. So we are going to get there. Thank you all for being along for the ride. And if you're still listening to us, make sure you throw us a rating or throw us a review on Apple or Spotify or any podcast domain of your choice. We do so many obviously plugs during the show for all of our great partners and sponsors, but we don't do it all the time for ourselves. So you guys can do it for us. Tell a friend, tell a cousin, tell a family member, tell anyone in your life that could benefit from or want to learn more about the great game or hear about their club here. Show them ball watching. And you guys can be our ambassadors. And if you're on YouTube or like video content, make sure they go to our channel at Ball Watching STL and throw us a like, throw us a subscribe. It obviously helps us get out to as many people just like us that want to learn more about this team and want to digest and get prepped for each and every one of these games. So thank you all for doing that. In the meantime, we appreciate you, and thank you for being here for the live show and for listening whenever you're listening during this week. We are, like I said, heading to Vancouver. We'll be back with you all for at least one episode for a preview of that Vancouver match. In the meantime, everyone enjoy the rest of your week and stay cool out there, St. Louis. It is abysmal. It is hot, and try to stay inside and get some. If you're going to be outside, get out there early or get out there late. It's just not worth it right now. It's disgusting. But everyone stay safe, stay cool, and we'll talk to you all midweek. In the meantime, all for City.